Hey there, I'm your host Lisowi, and in this tutorial, I'll show you how you can create a target lock-on system, how you can create projectiles, different type of projectiles, is homing projectiles, and how to create a crosshair which you can aim with and shoot. So with that said, let's begin. So let's go ahead and start by creating the projectile. Now for that, I want to create a separate folder. Let's call it Projectiles, and I will also change its color so it's a little bit more distinguishable, something like red. Let's open it, right click, go to Blueprint and select Blueprint class, actor. BP underscore projectile underscore actor shall be its name. I can spell. And I'm calling it projectile actor because this will be the base parent class for all of our other projectiles, such as arrows, missiles, whatever you have. Save it, open it. And in here, you want to start by adding a collision. I'll do a box collision, and I'll add the collision part to it. And you want to take this and drag it into your default scene root. Next, add a static mesh for the actual projectile visual. And since this is the base parent class, I don't really care, but I like the cube that Unreal has, cube01, so I'll use this. And another thing would be nice would be an arrow. So we see which direction this is facing. So we can add an arrow. I'll just drop it into the box collision, attach. There we go. And let's make it forward. Actually, you want to attach it to static mesh because it will travel together. Okay. And just like that, you want to then add the most important thing, which is the projectile movement component. And this actually allows the projectile to move. So I think that's all we got to do for now. Compile and save. And in the event graph, we could just click on the projectile movement and set those values in here. But I wanted to create a custom event to set them so we can change them based on different projectile types. So let's call it set projectile values. And in here, we'll simply grab the projectile movement and set the initial speed, the maximum speed. So let me reroute or reor and do set max speed. And I also want to go ahead and do this for the gravity. So set gravity scale. Perfect. And let me just move that over here and double click, create another reroute. We then want to set those values to variables so that we can change them based on different projectile types. So I won't actually have initial speed. I'll have max speed because I want my projectiles to always move at the fastest speed possible. If you, for example, have like a truck system where you drive, then you shoot the projectiles up at a certain speed. And then when they see a target, they go at max speed. Then maybe you want initial speed. In my case, I don't need it. So I'll just use it for initial and max speed. For projectile gravity scale, I'll just promote this to a variable and call it gravity scale. And we want to set default values. So if you compile, it'll let you do it. For gravity scale, I'll do something like 0.01. So very little here. And for max speed, something like 2000 will do. And also make sure to click instance editable and exposed on spawn. This is the setting that lets us set these values to something else when we use it in a different blueprint. So that's that. Let's also comment this. So this is our set projectile values. Bubble it when zoomed. And you want to call this event then on construction script. So this will start when you spawn the projectile. So grab the set projectile value and throw it in here. Now, if we compile and save, everything is nice. We want to then call this in our person character, for example. Let's open that. And in here, if I right click, oh yeah, we need to create an input action for that. So you want to go to content, input, actions, and create a new input action. Let's call it IA underscore shoot will do. Save it. And back in input, click on IMC underscore default click on the drop down of default key mappings, create a new mapping, select the input action you created, so shoot, and let's give it the left mouse button, for example. Save that, and now we can call this here, so input action shoot. And on started, we can call a node called spawn actor from class. And in here, we can spawn the projectile. There we go. Now for the spawn transform, what we can do is in the viewport, let's add a designated area for that to spawn. So click on your mesh, click on add, and select scene. Scene, just like so. Let's call it projectile spawn point. Let's move it up and let's move it forward. Now make sure that the X axis, so the red arrow, is facing forward, otherwise your arrow will fly to the left. So just make sure you rotate that like so, and that should do it. So now if we go back in here and plug this in here, get world transform. Make sure you get the world transform, not relative, otherwise it'll spawn at 0, 0. So let's throw this in, and that should do it. Compile and save. And I always want this to spawn no matter what, so just make sure you select always spawn, ignore collisions, and the instigator will be ourselves. And anything else? I think that's okay. So let's compile and save that and see this in action. Play and shoot, and there we go. Now another thing we can do, this will be very handy for arrows. For this cube, it doesn't really matter as such, but if you go back to the projectile actor and click on your projectile movement, you can click rotation follows velocity. And if you hover over it, it'll tell you, if true, this projectile will have its rotation updated each frame to match the direction of its velocity. So very handy for arrows. Right, let's just see this in action. Play again, and there we go. So over long distances, that will make sense, I guess. Now, this is kind of boring. We're not doing anything with impact. It just flies through, lives forever, and there's no collision. So if I shoot a bunch of these, you can actually see, if I pause the game, go on this side here, you can see how many of them I've spawned, and they will just persist forever because they don't have a life. So let's go ahead and fix that. So back inside the projectile, click on your box collision, right click, and do add event, add on component hit. And in here, we can manipulate this. So when we hit something, we can grab the hit result, do a break, and we have its location. So we can also go ahead and create an event dispatcher called on projectile hit, for example. And this will just do a notify for our game that, hey, we've hit something. So do something. Now in here, we can grab a, let's see, let's do a spawn emitter at location for visuals. Now, if you're using a Niagara system, what you can do instead is a spawn system at location instead. So in my case, I'm doing this. The effect I have in here, I took from Unreal Engine 5.4. It's a little explosion. And then for location, I can just plug in location like so. And yeah, I think that's all. And at the very end, I want to do a spawn sound at location. Now you could do, no, not spawn sound. Is it called spawn sound? Yeah, spawn sound at location. I'm getting confused between play sound at location. You could, spawn location, crazy. Spawn sound at location. You could do play sound at location, but the thing is, this has an output of the audio component, so you have more control with this. So I think it's just better to use that. So in here, plug this in. Oh yeah, the sound actually we have to select. So let's do dockable window. Close, that sounds good. And for location, just select your location and plug it in like so. And just reroute that. And this will be our impact. And at the very end, I just want to destroy this actor. Like so. And let's comment this. Hit logic, let's say. Oops, will do. And let's compile and save and see this in action. Oh yeah, and before we just do that, make sure you go on your collision here, on the box collision, and search for collision, and make sure that the collision preset is set to block all dynamic. Otherwise, it doesn't know that the wall is there and it will still just go through. And one more thing we can do, since we have collision on the box collision, we don't really need it on the static mesh, so just set this to no collision. Compile and save. Now if we play, this should work. So let's see. Oops. Oh yeah. So it's going to collide with me first if I'm moving. Yeah, so let's also go ahead and fix that. Now there are two things we can do for this, and I think it's good to do both just to be on the safe side. So first of all, if you go back to your projectile, we can add this here, for example. We can grab the box collision over here and do ignore collision when moving. So we can do that here. Now, if you hover over it, it'll tell you it also may need to be told to do the same on the other component. So let's do that. And the actor here would be the instigator. So instigator, there we go. And make sure you tick this should ignore. That's important. Otherwise, it just does nothing. And if I compile and save and go to the player character and do the same here, so just drag out, get the box collision. That's where that node will come from. Get box collision, probably at the very bottom. There we go. And let's do, what do I want? I want to set ignore. No, not set ignore. Ignore when moving. And the actor is just going to be ourselves in this case. And again, make that true and do self. Now I've tested this before. It doesn't look like it does a lot in here. I know it works because I've done it in other projects. So it does help a little bit, but not all the way. So to get around that issue, what we can do is we can go in here and we can go ahead and create something called delay arming. So first of all, let me just comment this as well. Shoot projectile. And if we go to the projectile now, let's create that delay arming event. So right click, do custom event, and call it delay arming. So delay arming is essentially when you spawn a projectile, you disable the collision for a bit, and then you enable it. So this just prevents any issues, any lag, stuff like that. And to do that, we want to grab the box collision and do set collision enabled to no collision. And then I want a slight delay. So for that, you can press the left mouse to do a delay. Now, this actually depends on how fast the projectile is moving, because if the projectile is moving very slow, 0.1 might not be enough because it will still collide. Now, if it's moving too fast, 0.1 might be too much. So it's a good idea to actually promote this to a variable and just call it like delay arming. Oh yeah, this is called delay arming. I'll just call it set delay arming. So actually I can call this delay arming. There we go. And also, I think I should have done this at the start. Select your variables. And let's get rid of collision, compile, and let's put this in a category. So I'll just call it settings. You can throw all of them in here, so it's easier to search for. And by default, I'll just set this to 0.1. We'll do for like speed 2000, 0.1 is perfect. Compile that. And at the very end, we just want to grab this again and set this to collision enabled, query, and physics. Comment that, set delay arming. And this will fix our whole collision problem. Now make sure you actually call this on event begin play, otherwise it does nothing. And now if you compile and save that, watch what will happen. Voila. So we have one more issue, and it's that if I shoot a projectile and if it doesn't actually collide with anything, it'll live forever. which is a problem. So let's go ahead and fix that. So back inside of the projectile, we wanted to create a custom event called set lifetime, for example. And let me just call this capital L, lifetime. And we want to do a set timer by event. And for this, I can do something like, let's promote this to lifetime. And if I compile, it'll let me set a value. So let's do like, just for the showcase, 2 seconds. Should get destroyed. And here we'll have this event. So end lifetime. And we'll simply just destroy this actor. And don't forget to set this. So let me comment this to lifetime logic, for example. And we want to set this on event begin play. So set it here, for example, and compile and save. Now, if I were to create a tower from this, right click and play from here. Now, if I shoot after 2 seconds, it should be gone, and it is. So there you go. Boop, boop, boop. Perfect. So let's just set this back to something more realistic. I think maybe like 8 seconds will do for me. Doesn't have to be much longer than that. Okay. So compile and save that. So the next thing I want to touch on is that if I play and we just run around and shoot, it doesn't matter really where I'm looking, it'll always just shoot right in front of me. And I don't really want that. I want the projectile to shoot where I'm looking at. So let's go ahead and create that system. So back inside the player character in here, let's create 2 custom events. And let's have them be called switch to aiming, or switch to aim view, for example. And then another one, switch to default view. And they will be called from an input action. So let's say I'm holding right click, we'll be aiming. If I'm not, we're not. So let's create a new input action for that. So go in here. I'll just copy over the shoot, much easier. And I'll just call it aim. And we want to set that key in the imc_default. Create a new mapping, and let's call it a aim. And I'll have it on the right click. Save that. Now back in here, let's do add timeline. And I'm doing a timeline just so we have a seamless transition for the boat. So it's not like jumpy and snappy. So in here, let's just call it the view aim timeline, view mode, timeline, something like that will do. Timeline. There we go. And I want this to be kind of quick. So like 0.3 of a second will do. Create new track, add float track. Let's call this the aim view track. We want to right click, create add key to curve float, and time is 0 because we just started, and the value will also be 0. Make sure you hit enter. I find this to be a little bit wonky at times. It doesn't set it properly. So create another one, and this time the time is the maximum time we have, which is 0.3. So set it to 0.3, and the value is going to be the maximum value, so 1. Hit enter, compile, and if we go back, we got it here. So this will be play, and this will be reverse. Now, when this happens, we want to get the follow camera and get the camera boom. Now, to show you how I'm going to do this, we compile that and go back into the game. We can grab our character, so third person, and if we plop them down into here, we can see the camera. So if you click on one of the components, like the follow camera, we can, for example, change the field of view to something like 70 changes, so we can see what values would look nice. And if you click on the camera boom, we can change the socket offset. So I've already played with these values, so I know 50 will look nice, and I know 20 will look nice here as well. So play around with it and just remember what they are. So 70 on the camera and 50-20 on the XZ or YZ for the socket offset. Then click on your character again, delete them, go back inside and you know the values now. So for the follow camera, what we can do, let's see. I want to set the field of view and I want this value to be a select. So we'll do a select float, for example. No, not select. We want to do a lerp, actually, my bad. We want to do a lerp. And this here will be the alpha, and A will be the default value, and B will be the aiming value. So let's promote these two variables. We'll call this the default FOV, field of view. And we'll also promote this to a variable, call it the aim FOV. Plug that to update, and this will change the camera. And we also got the change. We also have to change the camera boom for the offsets. So let's go ahead and do that. So here we'll just do set socket offset. There we go. And you also want to do a lerp, a vector this time. Let me just align this so it looks cool. And then I want to grab the aim track, plug it in here like we did before. And again, this will be a variable, default offset, offset will do. And we'll have the B be as aim offset. And there we go. Everyone's happy. Now we just got to set those values. So let me comment this as well. This will be like the update field of view. Update field of view will do. And we want to set those values now. So aim FOV, we know that compile first. We can set this to 70. We saw 70 working great. And then aim offset, we saw that 50 and 20 looked cool as well. Now, for the default values, it's probably best to set them on begin play because the character knows what they are. So on event begin play, we can grab the follow camera, camera boom, and do set field of view or get field of view. Same here, get socket offset. And before I do anything, I actually want this to be a function. So let's promote it and do set default view values. And we'll just plug it into begin play. So double click on that. In here, we can set all of that up. And this will set the variables. By the way, to align this is just Q. Select both and press Q. So select the default, set it, and same for the offset. Now, if we plug those values in, they'll be set. And let me see, am I forgetting anything? I don't think so. Oh yeah, I am actually. The input action for aiming. So if I press, I want to start aiming, and if not, then I want to end aiming. So we'll have switch to aim view. And then on completed, we'll switch to default view. And let's see that in action, compile and save. So if I play and I press right click, boom, or yeah, right click. There we go. Now, this would be nice if we had a crosshair to show us what's actually happening here. So let's go ahead and add a crosshair. So for that, I'll go into the content drawer and I want to create a new folder for UI. So in the UI, create a specific folder for this stuff here. So I'll call it like player UI since it's player kind of related. Also, let's just set this to be a color. I like to set the player something like gray. So we'll do gray, if I can get it. And we'll open that. In here, create a new user widget, blueprint, and we'll do WBP underscore crosshair. Let's open that up. Now, in here, you could set a circle or a cross. It's up to you. I'll show you how to do both. So let's do canvas. You could have like a image that you already have. You can just drop it in, but I'll show you how to do it with the border. Drag this in, click on the anchors, hold Control Shift, click on the middle one. And in here, you can just change the size to something like 1010, for example. Makes sense to be a crosshair. And then to be round, let me just zoom in. You go to brush and change the draw as from image to rounded box. And there you go. You're all set. So let's just change this back. And I want this to be, let's see, 530. And I'll copy the border, paste another one in here, and I'll just rename that border 2 and border 1. So border 2, again, just go to anchors, hold Control Shift, snap in the middle, and let's just reverse that, 30 and 5. And there we go. We have a nice little crosshair here. So, yeah, that will do. I want to then compile that. And in the event graph, let's get rid of event tick, event preconstruct. We can leave construct. And I want to create 2 custom events. Show, let me move the mouse. Show crosshair, and we'll have another one, a hide crosshair. Now, this will be very simple. We just do a set visibility. This will be to show we want it to be visible but not hit testable, so we can't click on it. And then just copy that, and this will be collapsed. So again, the difference between collapsed and hidden is that hidden exists in the UI space, collapsed doesn't. So let's just collapse it. And on event construct, I want to start as collapsed. So we can just call hide crosshair and comment that show slash hide, whoops, crosshair. And here I'll just call hide crosshair. And another thing that I want to do is, before we leave this, I want to create a targeting component in the projectiles, and you'll see why in a second. So we'll create a new blueprint class of type actor component, PPC targeting. And for the moment, let's just open that, and I want to add 2 event dispatchers on aim begin and on aim end. Compile that, save it, and if you go back, in here, we can move this out of the way a little bit, and let's just do a sequence node. This will be on 1. On 0, I want to get the owning player pawn, and I want to check for that component, get component by class. And if they have it, so is valid, plug that in here on 0. If they have it, and also let's just plug in the actual component in here, would be a good idea. And we'll promote it to a variable, and let's call this, actually, I don't need to promote it to a variable, but maybe let's just do targeting component. And this will allow us to listen to when we're aiming and not. It's just, I think, really good to do it this way. So if this exists, first of all, if it does exist, we can bind event on aim begin, and we can bind event on aim end. And all we got to do is you just create an event. We already have this event, so show and hide. Just search for it here. Show crosshair, copy that over, and do hide crosshair. And that's all you got to do. Let's comment this, set reference to target component and bind to events. And we can leave, compile and save. I think we're good to close this down for now. And in the targeting component, we want to right click, create a custom event, create crosshair widget. In here, you'll create the widget, which is your crosshair. You will add this, or first of all, promote it to a variable, always good to do, crosshair. And we can put this in the references, actually, reference. And we'll just add to viewport. Now, if I comment this, create a crosshair widget and add it to event begin play, and move this down a little bit. So on event begin play, grab your crosshair thingy, create crosshair, add this to your player character. So go to add, PPC, targeting component. We can now listen to it. So if I grab this targeting component and do call on aim begin, and let me just do call on aim end, as simple as that, we have now a crosshair. So let's see this in action. I right click and we got a crosshair. Perfect. And we still can't shoot where we're actually aiming. So we'll go ahead and do this part next. So we actually shoot here. So for that, you want to go ahead and open up your targeting component again. And in here, we want to create a new function called something like get aim direction. And in here, we want to get the owner of this component, which is going to be ourselves. And from ourselves, we want to get a component by class again. And this component comes with Unreal Engine, and this is called the camera component. Now from here, we can check where the camera is and where we're looking. So we can get a location. What's it called? Get world location. There we go. And we can do get forward vector. And we can multiply by a certain distance that we're looking into the forward. So let's say we create a variable for that. This will be max, I don't know, target distance. And let's call this, let's make this a float. And if I compile, by default, we can give it like a max range, something like, I don't know, 8,000, I think is good. Drag this in here, and we can plug this into here as like so. Okay, so we have the max range that we can look into, and we've got the location. So next we can do a sphere trace by, not a sphere trace, my bad, a line trace by channel. So this creates a line from the start location, which our camera is currently at, to the forward distance of 8,000 units that we're looking into. Now, this is great. Now, from the break hit, let's break that open. Here we have the impact, where is this? The trace end, which is important, and we have the location that we hit. So, for example, if we're looking into empty space, we'd be setting the trace end at 8,000 units because we haven't hit anything. If we have hit something, we'll be using the location that we hit. So this will be important for the actual crosshair. So what we want to do is get the owner again, get the actor location, and we'll do a return at the very end, which will grab a location value. And I'll just call this direction. And this, we want to do a get unit direction vector. And it comes from our player's location to the distance we're looking at. So either the hit location or the trace end. So let's do a select vector. Return value comes from here. And A is going to be the location if we hit something, and B if we didn't. And there we go. That's all we gotta do in here. And this should work now. Last thing we gotta do is just create a function using this function as well. Right. I think it's okay. Let's compile and save that. So back inside the projectile actor now. Let's go ahead and first of all add a reference to the target component. So in here, I'll create a sequence. The 1 will set all of these, and on 0 we'll get the component. So To get it, I'll right click and get the instigator, this one here. Right click on that, convert to a validated get. It might not be set. Now you want to make sure this is set. So where you do that again is in the player character, when you spawn the projectile self as the instigator, make sure you set this. So back in here then, this will be valid, and we'll do get component by class. Again, just check if it's valid to avoid any errors. If you don't have it, then you know you gotta add it, and we'll do VPC targeting. So if it's valid, we'll just promote it to a variable targeting component, like so. Now this gives us access to that get direction function we just made. Set reference to targeting component. Right, so since we got the reference now, we can use it to our advantage. So let's do custom event, set aim direction. In here, we'll get the targeting component, just check if it's valid. Also, let me move this into references. Do I have references? I do not. Reference. So if it's valid, I want to get the aim direction. And then I want to multiply this by the speed. So remember, velocity is direction times speed. So we'll get maximum speed. Plug that in here. And then if we get the projectile movement, set, what's it called? Velocity, we'll have our speed. And let's comment that as set projectile to fly in the aiming direction. Just don't forget to actually call this as well on the start. So make sure you call this here. So set direction, set aim direction. Now, if we compile and save that, we should be able to aim. Here we go. A little bit off, but is it a little bit off? Yeah, it's a little off. Let's fix that. So back inside the targeting component, silly me didn't actually add those two values together. So you want to add the start location to the offset location, which is the 8,000 units in front of you. Make sure you set this as the end location. Otherwise, you'll have the problem I did. So now if we play, this should work perfect. And there we go. Perfect. So next, I want to cover targets. So let's go ahead and create a target we can look at and shoot. So I'll create it in the projectiles folder. So let's go to blueprint, blueprint class, and select actor, BP underscore target underscore actor. Like again, you can have multiple targets if you want. This will be the base parent. And in here, for the time being, I'll just add a static mesh. And I'll have this be a cube. Let's see, find a nice cube, cube one. Cube one will do. And let's make it red. So let's compile. Go to the colors. Woof. And that's a lot. What I'll do actually, if I go to all, content, level prototyping, materials, I'll just use the default. Yeah. Copy that. We'll call it M underscore target color. And I want to change the roughness to be 0. No roughness on that. Very shiny. And I want the color to be reddish. Perfect. Metallic. Let's do like 0.1 maybe. Metallic like 0.2. Yeah. Looks cool. Let's compile and save that. And now just plug it in. M underscore target. Color, beautiful. Compile and save that. And let's go ahead and add this to our world. So now if I go in here somewhere, grab the target actor, move it up a little bit. Oh yeah, before I do any of that, I should probably size it. So this is the X axis. So let me change the width of that, and maybe I'll make it like 2 meters tall. I think that will be okay. And let's move that here. So now if I play, we have this target actor here. Now we can look at it and shoot it, all good. But I want that when I look at the target, my crosshair changes to a different color to indicate that I'm actually looking at a shootable or damageable actor. So let's do that. So let's go ahead and create a new function in the UI, player UI crosshair. So inside the event graph, we'll go ahead and create a new function. Maybe let me bring this down a little bit, and I'll do it here. Custom event. Oops, that's not a custom event. Update crosshair, for example. And I want to, in here, have an input for the hit actor. So let's get actor type. And let's call it hit actor. And I want to check if this is valid. Get the red boolean here valid. We want that. And I want to go into the designer, and I need to make my borders variable. Otherwise, I can't change the color. So just make sure you have that. Compile and grab them in here. And we can do set color, set brush color. Yep. And now I can do a select color from here. This goes in here. This goes like so. And if the target is valid, pick A. So change it to something like greenish. We are looking at the target. If not, I'll just have it white as the default color, as it already is. And just changes color if target is valid. Comment. Right, and that looks good. Compile and save that. Now we just got to use this event somewhere. So if we go back into the targeting component, we made this get aim direction function. We can pretty much copy the first half of it till the line trace. So copy that, create a new function, call it a target trace, and paste your code into here. So we got the starting setup here. Now, from here, we'll get the break actor. And let's see. Yeah, so I want to grab a branch. And when I hit something, we check if this hit actor has a tag of, let's say, target. So we need to make sure that our target has this tag. So let's go ahead and add it straight away, because I will forget. So click on your actor here, not the component, the actor here, and search for tag. Click on tag and make sure you type in target. You could actually just copy paste this as well, just to make sure you have no errors. Just paste that in here as well. So if they have the tag, so if we hit something and they have a tag, then we'll promote to a variable, call it hit actor. Otherwise, do nothing. Make sure to set it to false, so we update the widget as well. So this is false. Reroute that, make it pretty and nice. And then what we got to do? We have this reference already, crosshair, and we can just call update crosshair. Like so. And do this on all of them. Paste as well. And now, one more step away from our goal. Let's compile and save that. And back in the aim direction, oops, nope. On event tick here, we want to grab the target trace and run it on event tick, so it keeps checking off for it. And don't worry, it's not expensive. We are just doing a line trace. Compile and save. And if we play now, and I look at it, boom, changes color. There we go. We can hit this. Now you might notice if you, for example, shoot a target, it changes back to white. That's because we're using the visibility trace channel. So you could actually go to Windows on the top left, go to Project Settings, very good to have here, Trace, and we will create a new trace, just call it like Target, and we'll have it ignore by default. So we have our own trace channel now that we can check for, only for tracing if they're a hittable target. So in here, make sure you select trace. You got to compile and save first for it to show up, so just do that. Now if you did, and you play, the actual projectile shouldn't affect it, but I broke everything because our target here doesn't have the trace channel. So click on the mesh. Wait, actually, what am I doing here? Target trace channel, yeah. Yeah, the target has to block this as well. So just type in collision on the static mesh, do custom, and target to block. That way, the projectile won't affect it at all. So if we shoot, boom, doesn't affect it, and it works. Perfect. So next, let's explore the possibility of the targets actually moving like left and right as a target practice. And then we can do cool stuff like setting our projectiles to homing or even auto lock, like target lock on. So first of all, let's make this move. So to do that, we want to open it. So click on the actor, press Ctrl and E to open up the blueprint, go to the event graph, and in here we can create a new function, call it set should, let me move that, move. Now you want to call this on your construction script. So let's grab set should move and call it here. Now for the logic, let's create a variable. Is moving target, for example. Get it? And we'll do a branch. So be left mouse, plug this in here. And we want to then add interp to movement component. You could by default just add it in here like we did with the projectile movement, but then it's already active and I don't want every target to move. So we'll just plug this in here and we can promote this to a variable. I'll call it interp ref. Just add it to reference as well. Compile, set this to reference. All right. So in here also I want an arrow to indicate which direction it's gonna move. So let's add an arrow. And again, I just want to rotate this to a side, something like this. And so the actor's rotation is that x-axis is forward and y-axis is to the left or to the right, if I'm looking at it this way. So the arrow, we want to set that value as well to the green of the actor. So what I mean by that is if we get the arrow and we do set arrow length, here we don't have to do anything, but at the end we will. So by default, the arrow is 80 units long. So I'll just set that in here as 80. And then I want to have a few more variables. So let me just create those. I want the duration float, and I want the speed. And these two variables are in the interp movement component. We have, where's this? Duration and speed somewhere, speed multiplier, I think. So anyways, let's get those. I'll explain what they do in a second. So from here, we'll do set duration, whatever the duration is. And then I want to set the speed multiplier, like so, whatever the speed is. Now by default, let me just set those and I'll explain in a second what happens. Let me just move that around, make it a little bit cleaner. What else I got to do? I want to add control point position. So it moves from A to B, A to B, A to B constantly. And let me just reroute that as well here. And I want one more. So we'll do add control point position. So this is the start location and the end location. Right. So for positions, this will have position as empty, so the original. And here we want to promote this to end position. And since we are moving to the side of the actor, so green arrow, remember, we want to set the Y value. So let me compile, and Y value is the answer here. So let's set it to 500. Now it would be cool if I'm in the viewport here and I can see the distance this can move to, so I can actually set it visually. So to do that, we can use this arrow that we got here and use it to our advantage by setting that distance. So we'll get the arrow. Oh yeah, before I do anything, let me just set ping pong, or what's it called? Set behavior type. So this interp movement component has a behavior type in here. One shot, loop reverse, etc. So ping pong is ping pong, back and forth, back and forth. So we'll just set this to be ping pong. And after that, we can use this arrow to set the arrow length. Let's get the, let's see. So you want to go ahead and grab the end position and do a split. So we can split the structure and take the X value and plug it into here. And this should do it for us. I think X or Y would be, I think it's X, yeah. Compile and save that. And now if we, oh yeah, we have to check all of these. So make sure you have them instance editable, expose and spawn, duration as well, speed, and the end position. And you know what? I'll throw all of these into the settings category. So settings, put them in here. And now if I were to compile and save, click on this actor here, search for settings, I do moving target, we can see the distance. So right now it's 0. I think I should have set this to be Y, right? I think that's the answer here, compile and save. Yeah, so it's Y, my bad. So we can see how far this will move. And if I hit simulate, we can see it moving. So I mentioned that I'll explain the duration and speed. So the duration and speed, they go hand in hand. And if, for example, speed is like the seconds, so 2 seconds, and if I leave duration at 1, that means this is going to move at 50% of that speed. So if I play again, simulate, oh, sorry, twice as fast. So if I had this at 1 and this at 5, this will move 20% of that. So if I play, it's 20% of the original one. So it's like a divide, essentially. So if this is 1 and I do 0.5, this will be twice the speed. I'll play, boom, 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 and so on. And if I were to do, let's say, 0.1, this will be, what, 1,000 times? Tuk, 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 tuk. Yeah. So let's just change this back to 2, for example. And let's try this out. So we hit the target. And that works. Another thing I would like to try out is that if I'm aiming at the target, we have the option to target lock. I don't know if you've ever played any games like maybe World of Tanks or something like this. You can auto lock on targets. So if I middle mouse, it'll create a target lock and I can look in any direction and just shoot and it's going to hit the target. So let's go ahead and do that. So to start things off, I'll close the, before I close the crosshair, we actually want to copy it. So let me go back in here, Control C, Control V to copy it, and we'll call it WBP lock on target crosshair. You could put everything into one crosshair, but I feel it will be a little bit overwhelming, so I'll just put it in a separate widget. And essentially, what we'll do in here is pretty much the same thing. We'll modify the crosshair. We'll come back here in a second. I want to go to the targeting component, and I want 2 more event dispatchers. I want on target lock start, or on lock on target, and then on target lock end. Let's just call this begin. Stay consistent. And I'll call them in the crosshair here. So let's move this back a little bit. And instead of do onAim begin and onAim end, I'll do on target lock begin. Assign. So assign creates an event for you. We can just do a bind. And let's do bind on target lock end. There we go. And here we'll have again just a show crosshair. And this will just again be hide crosshair. So pretty much all the work is done for us. We don't need this color change here. I will, however, keep this. I want this color when we're locking on at all times. So if I compile, go back into the designer, I want these by default to have that color. So let me just put in the brush color here. Voila and voila. Okay. So first of all, let me hide border 2 and border 1. I want to maybe have a dot. So as we did before, I'll set it to like 10 and 10. And we'll change the draw as to rounded box. There we go. That's finished. Now for border 2, I'll change this to something like 300 and 300. Let me also show this on the screen. And I want this to be a circle. So we'll change from image to rounded box. And I want to click on outline settings. And the width, for example, this is the stroke of this. So 6, you can see it get a little bit thinner because the stroke doesn't actually have a color. So let me just change this to green as well. And it'll update the alpha. Boom, it gets thicker. Now the inside I want to be hollow. So if we go to brush, it was already opened. If you click on, where's this brush? Brush color. You want to set the alpha to be 0. And there we go. We have our lock on target. So play around with this, create something you like. I think this is good enough. Compile and save that. And this is updated. This can go away. Compile and save. We can close the... Oh, this is the wrong one. Oops, 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 oops. Compile and save that. That's our crosshair. And okay, we can close the target actor, I think, as well. Let me just comment this as I do with everything else. Set should move logic. Just to know what happens. Not really descriptive, but should be okay. Right, let me just fix this since I deleted a few things. Okay. Okay, so we want to use that now. So let's go back into the targeting component, create an input action for target lock. I don't have it. So we want to go into content, input actions. I'll copy shoot again, and I'll just call it lock on target. Go back into your IMC_default, create a new mapping, lock on target. Go, and I'll use middle mouse. Now if I save and we go back to the targeting component again, we can call lock on target. Yep. I want to check if the hit actor, get it, is valid. So convert to validate to get. If it's valid, from that I want to create a new actor. We'll call it the lock on target. I just call it, yeah, lock on target. And if it's not, we'll have the lock on target set to nothing. And then we call that event dispatcher. So we can call on lock begin and again on lock end. Now, I think this should work. Let's compile and save. Let's also comment this. So this is our lock on target logic. Comment that. And just before this works, let's open up the projectile actor. And in here, we have to do a few things. So let's go all the way to the bottom. And in here, I want to right click, do a custom event, call it move to target. And I want to get the target from here. Now we don't have one, so we'll create a variable. We can use this for homing as well, so that's perfect. Target, call it your actor type. Make sure it's instance editable and expose and spawn, and I'll add it to the references. we'll get this, convert to a validated get. So if our target is valid, we'll get the target, not target, actor location. Get actor location of self of the projectile. And again, we'll just do get unit direction vector. So from here to here. And again, we just want to grab this, multiply by the speed. So to get the velocity, max speed, throw it in here, get your projectile movement and do set velocity. So again, this goes here and velocity is direction times speed. And yeah, clean enough. And we'll just do set target last location and move to it. And we'll comment that. And I want one more thing. I want to create a custom event, set target. And in here, I want to get the targeting component. So I gotta add this. No, I have it already. Targeting component, convert to a validated get. So if the targeting component is valid, if the target, lock on target is valid, convert to a validated get, then we'll set the target here to have a value. Otherwise, just do nothing. And we'll call move to target. Let's comment that to, oh, this should be called set target last location and move to it. And this should be called get the projectile. Okay. All right. So last thing to do is to actually call this here. So just call set target. And if I compile and save that, now if I hit play, we should be able to just lock on the target. So with the mouse, it doesn't do anything. Let me see why. So the reason it doesn't actually work is because I forgot to add the widget in here. So make sure you create a new widget as well for the target lock on. So we'll call it create lock on target widget. And just change this to lock on target. And we'll plug this in here, remove that. Promote variable, lock on target crosshair. And just make sure you add this to event begin play as well. Where is it? Just search for it, create lock on target widget. Probably should be called target crosshair. All right, so compile and save that. And now if we play, this should work. So I aim, it's valid, boom, there we go. And I can shoot wherever I want, and it's always going to follow the target. So if I shoot here, boom, follows target. Or tries to at least anyway, if I'm too fast. And if something's in it, obviously it's going to interrupt. But always it's going to try to follow the target. Perfect. I like it. And we can always just disable it as well. All right. So the last thing I want to do is a homing projectile. So similar to targeting, but we don't have to have the lock on target. If we look at it and it's a valid target, we can set it to follow it. So let's do that. So let's go back inside the projectile actor. And that's pretty easy to actually set up. We'll create a custom event and call it set homing. And in here, we can get the projectile movement and set the homing projectile. Promote this to a variable is homing. Connect it like so. And make sure you click on the variable, instance editable, expose on spawn, and we'll just add it to the settings category. And compile and save. Lifetime, I think, should also go to settings. Next, we want to do a branch. So be left mouse again. And if it's a homing projectile, we'll check if the target is valid. So get it, convert to a validated get. If the target is valid, you want to get the root component, otherwise you can't actually set this here. So let me just show you. Set homing target. It needs a component. This won't let you do it. So do root component. And then we can do and set the homing speed, homing acceleration magnitude. And I'll just set that to whatever my maximum speed is. So we'll get max speed, plug it in, and there we go. And let's just comment this. All right, so last thing to do is to actually add this as well to here. So set homing. And now if I compile and save, we got to add the target, because right now the target will be empty. So if you go to your third person character here, we are calling this. If you click on the drop down, well, you should see the target anyways without the drop down. So homing is true. Now the target we want to get from the targeting component, and it's not going to be the lock on target. So don't do that. You want to get the hit actor, because that's what we're using the trace for. And this will be the target. So now if I were to show you, let me get some distance from this. I'll stand here again. If I shoot at the target, an aim, you can see the projectile tries to, if I shoot, it curves. You can see the projectile curves to try and hit the target. Can I show you? Yeah, you saw that there. Let me see again. Yeah, you can see how it curves. So that's homing. And just before we finish up, let me show you how you can create different type of projectiles. So if we go to projectile, right click on this, create a child class. We'll call this, let's say, projectile sphere. And inside here of our player, person character, instead of doing this, I can spawn a sphere, sphere projectile. Again, I'll leave the settings as they are. Maybe I'll change this to like 1000, a bit slower. And then I want to actually open this up. And instead of a cube, we can use a sphere. So let's do sphere. Anything will do really. It's fine. I'll just make it tinier, like 0.4. File and save. And if I play and shoot, boom, we get a sphere. So this will be all for the video. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned a lot. And if you did, leave a like. And as always, happy developing.